My DJ setup is always changing. Of course, with electronic music, there's new plugins and hardware and things coming out, but I have to find the best technology at that moment to allow me to do what I love to do with the art of DJing. Of course, it's based upon playing other people's records, and I have Traktor on this computer with 3 decks, and that's the bed of everything I do. Loops or songs or demos, and I weave those together, sometimes using a bass from one track and hi-hats from another, and try to make it gel together into something that sounds new and exciting. But on top of that, I also want to be able to sculpt and add effects and, take it to another level, to add more emotion or, bring energy and anticipation. And that's what the rest of this stuff is for. I have 3 decks running in Traktor, and usually I like to have different things happening on each. One for a bed track, one for a loop, maybe one for some percussion. So on this channel, this would be what I consider my main track. You've got bass, you've got a melody in there, and that's going to be the underlining component for 5 or 6 or 7 minutes. On this, we've got a little bit more high percussion. The bass isn't in there, so that will go together with the first track really well. And later, to progress things, I would bring in the 3rd turntable, which has some other drums, but importantly over top, you've got a kind of string melody. And when those things all come together, you get some interplay with percussion, different claps, 2 melodies hitting off of each other, and it's now becoming something which didn't really exist before I started. On each channel, we have ways to manipulate the sound. We have a low pass and high pass filter, so you can smoothly take away frequencies, the low, the high, and then a very special EQ in the center, sculpting EQ, and what that means is you can actually pick the frequency that you want to boost or cut. And that's very flexible because, of course, as a DJ, we're playing so many different records with different frequency ranges, and this allows you to find the frequency that you like or don't like and cut and manipulate. The filters are very smooth, whereas the EQ is more sculpting and nearly surgical in its precision. The main reason I layer things up is just to give people a unique experience. I don't want anyone on the dance floor really recognizing anything too much. Maybe a fragment or a small piece of their favorite song, but I want everything to sound different or better or thicker. So for example, when I have 3 decks running, of course you don't want all the frequencies hitting each other, so on the first one I have everything coming through, and on the second one I've got the bass taken away, some of the highs kind of reduced, so it just kind of sits in the middle between the first and the second. And the last one, which has this really nice melody, I found the frequency of that melody and then brought that up. So that's what I want to hear from that track. This is what I want to hear from that, and this from the other track. And if you put those together in the right way, it really melts together and becomes this 4th track or this imaginary thing that doesn't really exist. Devices these days have so many different possibilities and menus and screens, and that's something that's very easy to get lost in. So I try to find instruments and devices that I can set up to do just a couple of things, and definitely in a way that I know that when I touch this knob or move these faders, I know exactly what they're going to do. Those are decisions that I make before I get on stage, so that there's lots of possibilities, but somehow it's controlled and I can actually start to play this network of devices, which in my mind, it's my own unique instrument. On another channel, I have Ableton Push, which is where I add percussion and rhythmical sounds. So I can add claps, snares, also can control them from over here and do things with tuning. And it's in combination of push and the records that you're playing where the magic comes together. So by using the filters and the EQ or the master filter to cut out the bass, then using the push, which is very good at doing great fills, you can bring the energy down, create anticipation, and then quickly, by taking the master filter out again, bring it all back in one go. I'm also controlling push from my K2s over here. This allows me to bring up the volumes of individual instruments and drum sounds, and also change tuning. Model 1 has a very unique feature in that it has two cue systems. So DJs playing together have two separate headphone jacks so they can actually listen to different things at the same time, which brings a new level of collaboration. I'm just playing by myself right now, so I'm actually using QB for a different feature, and I've got the volume of QB sending up to my computer for a third effect, and that actually controls my flange. And this is actually different than my delay and my reverb, which are knobs, and that gives a certain feel. This one, I just turn the flange on and off. So it's another way to use the mixer, and a different way to play with effects. Every knob, every fader, every button has a different feel. And for me, that was an interesting way to bring a third effect into my whole system. I have one more important control, which is actually on the floor below, and that's my foot pedal, which controls the feedback from my delay in Ableton. So I can pull this up. On each of Model 1's 6 main channels, you also have an analog overdrive feature, which allows you to bring some harmonic distortion into the signal and warm up sounds, or even actually destroy them. So on my string channel, I have that fully up because the strings are coming from the computer, and that allows me to give a little bit more warmth and depth to the strings. On my claps and everything coming from push, which are all digital samples, I've got that coming in a little bit. And you can see it as it's hitting. And then I even bring it up on some of the main tracks. Kind of dial it in and dial it back. In today's world of so many different sources coming into the DJ booth, CDJs and records and digital audio files, this is really a great function to be able to help sounds in different channels gel or bring warmth, or even, again, distort sounds where you want to, and not actually distort the master channel, but just distort that particular thing that you want to sound like that. final piece of the puzzle is this small Euro rack system, which I've just recently added with a Metropolis and Atlantis sequencer and synthesizer. And it's a new texture for my sets, because I can actually now add small melodies. And how that all comes together gives me a new, thicker, bigger sound. No matter how you DJ, there's always a mixer in the center. That's what channels all the different frequencies and whatever equipment you're using, turntables, computers, CDJs, effects, it all comes through here. So it's very important to be very familiar and confident and know exactly the capabilities and where everything is placed so that you can play and close your eyes and just perform. Now, I've been playing with this mixer now on and off for over a year, different prototypes, and now I'm to the place where it's becoming like a muscle reflex, and that's where the magic starts to happen. If I'm going to the computer or over here, and that's the network of instruments that I'm trying to create. Bringing all these elements together is what gives me my own unique sound. With Model 1, I actually have more channels than I've ever had before. I've got 8. So in the beginning, I had two turntables and a delay. Then I added a computer. And it's this constant development and evolution of finding new ways to play and perform and create a performance that doesn't sound like anyone else except for me.